What can you say about Dustructoid that isn't preceded by the phrase, the once great? Destructoid's fall from grace makes the Luciferian descent from paradise to Phoenix, Arizona look like a mild falling out. There was a time, it feels like the late Cretaceous, but there was a time, believe it or not, when I borderline trusted this website. I want to say this is probably around the site's initial founding, around maybe late 2006, early 2007. And while the coverage could be spotty at best, and at least at the time it was way too focused on console war cockfighting, it happened to have an easy-to-use, streamlined interface. You could sort your news by platform, if I remember correctly. It just cut through the bullshit and got straight to the fucking news, which, relative to sites like IGN, where you have to wade through 3 pages of Brangelina baby mama drama and comic book reviews that I have to believe in all likelihood were proofread by Bizarro, and then maybe, possibly, with a proper voodoo incantation and bundles of raven feathers and house cat teeth, you could possibly get a viable news story that was in all likelihood originally reported somewhere the fuck else. I don't know when the metamorphosis over at Destructoid took place, and neither Franz Kafka nor myself happened to give an ion of a fuck, but it happened, and it happened hard. Scrolling eyesore marquee? Check. Deceptive headline titles and cleavage-bedecked lead photographs? Check. Arbitrary numbers at the end of game review scores, signifying exactly fuck and all? Natch! Advertising and journalism commingling into an incestuous maelstrom of cash and soft, plushy pseudo-journalism? A1 fucking right. Secondhand stories from third-hand sources bracketed by third-rate opinions? Yep. The resident personality whose contrary-wise opinionating draws controversy-related ad revenue viewership? You bet Sterling's pitted marble ass they do. Each of the 7 deadly sins of modern video game journalism, and more than a few of the biblical ones, are present and accounted for on a daily, weekly, and hourly basis on Dustructoid.com. Most visibly, the Age of Wushu Saga. Age of Wushu is known quite well by the valued Dustructoid community, as they were responsible for absurd, intrusive, automated spam advertisements on the comments section of each and every Destructoid article for what had to have been a solid 3-week period. Justifiably, fans were fuming. And they should have been. Audience comments were buried so deep beneath the ocean of spam you needed 9 hours in a fucking decompression chamber afterward. Fans reported the spam bots, and good on them for doing so. But when Destructoid, rather than kicking Age of Wushu to the curb, grabbed for the nearest headboard and spread wide their nether parts, the valued Destructoid community received a valued compulsory dicking at the hands of Age of fucking Wushu. Or how about the Alistair Pinsoff Chloe Sagal suicide saga? Because apparently the truth is less truthy if someone decides to attempt to off themselves in the aftermath, or happens to be a member of a minority group, causing the possibility of them behaving disgracefully in any discernible fashion to come into direct conflict with Destructoid's narrative of political correctness. In wrestling parlance, this is a heel program as far as I'm concerned, with each character less redeemable than the last. Alistair Pinsoff did the right thing initially by reporting Chloe Sagal's Indiegogo fraud. It was gaming related, it was fraud, and she is a snipped off dickbag for concealing this fact from their fans and using gaming funds to pay for pee-pee surgery. Period. And Destructoid can eat 12 inside-out dicks for pulling the story and levying penalties on a journalist for daring to cast a member of an en vogue minority in a justifiably negative light. I don't give a front-flipping fuck if Chloe Sagal is turning herself into Steven Seagal. They fucking lied to people, and that shit needs to be reported. Jim Sterling and others on the leaning tower of jelly that comprises Destructoid's editorial board, they've demonstrated time and again that news isn't good enough. Not unless it's been buffed to a glossy sheen by the despotic facade of PC dogma. Truth is never politically correct. And if you find yourself printing something that is, you need to crawl all the way inside that story and lay fucking eggs before you print something that could possibly register as utter bullshit, which thanks to your mandatory editorial whitewashing now adequately describes 90% of the dreck you chiclet brains regularly publish. And while I could just as simply make a frank and perfectly valid assertion about precisely how Destructoid's attempts to selectively edit news with a vapid veneer of political correctness is not only intellectually dishonest but overtly fucking dangerous, I think the following exchange perfectly summarizes my thoughts reasonably well, with no apologies whatsoever for featuring Deadwood references in 2 subsequent vlogs. This exchange between the Old West crime lord Al Swearingen and the frontier newspaperman A.W. Merrick, I feel perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with reporting news only when it happens to conveniently fall within propriety's limits, and the dangerous hypocrisy that arises when the press takes the next Orwellian step by taking a scrub brush to the very same.
Information which affects this community is not my prerogative to disseminate. To do so is my sacred responsibility.
Whores currently disseminating a dose, for example.
To inform within decency's limits. We've had this discussion before.
Citizens better die pustulating than touch indecent ink.
Make a list of the infected whores, an account for this morning's gunfire, and I'll publish it all.
I won't, fucking Merrick, because neither's to my fucking interest. Just as you owning a print press proves only you've an interest in the truth, meaning up to a fucking point. Slightly more than us others may be, but short of a fucking anointing or the shouldering of a sacred burden. Unless, of course, the print press was gift of an angel, I'd want to be there for that handoff myself.
The naked hypocrisy of Dustructoid's politically correct news doctrine comes into even sharper focus when you consider that they're more than willing to giddily shirk the very same lofty standards when it comes time to traffic in wholesale rumor mongering, rumor being the second most likely substance to cross Jim Sterling's lips next to high fructose corn syrup. Oscar Wilde once said, I believe, that the difference between literature and journalism is that journalism is unreadable and literature is not read. But then I suppose neither is Dustructoid. I'm RazörFist. God fucking speed.